And joining me now is Matthew Bryza, who's a former U.S. ambassador, and John Kasapoglu, who's a defense analyst at EDAM, the Center for Economics and Foreign Policy Studies. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here. I'll start with you, John. Why does Turkey need S-400?
Well, the military explanation is Turkey needs to balance its fighter aircraft because the pilot-to-cockpit ratio is problematic, first. And second, this defensive strategic weapon systems for a country at Turkey's level, especially if you are bordering the Middle East, you must have them. And not talking particularly about the S-400, but talking about a long-range, high-altitude air and missile defense system for a country like Turkey who is facing a huge ballistic missile threat at its doorstep, it is also a must-have one. But coming to the system itself, in particular S-400, is it the best of the decisions? It is very debatable.
All right, we'll come to the specifics of what S-400 can do a little later into the discussion. Matthew, Turkey has been maintaining that it did give U.S. a chance as an ally when they were talking about the Patriot missile defense system, didn't receive a very positive response from U.S. Now Turkey is really getting a very strong reaction from U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Why are those concerns being raised now?
Well, first of all, yeah, Turkey was asking for something, a technology transfer, earlier in the Patriot deal that is something the U.S. just doesn't do when it comes to this weapons system. So there was really nothing personal against Turkey. That's how we kind of got into this difficulty in the beginning. The U.S., leadership, political leaders and military experts and senior military officers are very upset for a couple of reasons. There's a technical set of reasons, and John knows a lot more about those than I do, but a technical set of reasons which very senior military officers, multi-star generals in the last week or so have told me are serious in that once you turn on the S-400, it is able to learn characteristics of the F-35 fighter, the most advanced fighter in NATO, and there are questions about whether or not Turkey will really be able to prevent that information.
Didn't they foresee this happening? There was an opportunity that Turkey had provided U.S. as an ally to deal with, to start a deal on the Patriot missile system. They didn't respond pretty much positively on that at that point in time. And isn't it too late for U.S. to react when Turkey is already set on the path of a deal with Russia?
Well, you hit the second point I was making exactly. There's a political argument here that it's incomprehensible that Turkey would choose a Russian system, the country against whom the West has sanctions, against whom NATO has reconfigured itself, right, to protect the NATO homeland against offensive Russian military operations like the one in Ukraine, a non-NATO member. At this moment, politically, it's totally unsavory and impossible to comprehend in U.S. circles. And so the U.S. argument is, well, we could have continued the discussions about the Patriot, but you went ahead and decided to buy the Russian system.
All right. Talking about the systems, John, how will the S-400's system add to the capabilities of Turkish military mechanism?
Well, in order to answer this question, it is about what are you expecting from the S-400? S-400 in the Western writings is a very capable anti-access area denial system. I'm not saying that, the Russians are not saying that, the US War College, the Washington think tanks are writing about that, okay? So if you are expecting from S-400 working as stand-alone, as Turkey's procurement chief underlined in a show back in February, and if you are expecting the S-400 to take care of Turkey's air defense, yes, it is a very capable system. But if you are expecting the S-400 to conduct ballistic missile defense is not about the weapon system, it's about the architecture. It is about a set of systems from satellites to radars, sensors, airborne early warning aircraft that should communicate with each other. When it comes to that, the expectations from S-400 about intercepting possible ballistic missiles targeting Turkish territory, it would not be able to fully meet these expectations, actually.
But it definitely will add to its defense mechanism.
It will add to Turkey's defense if you think in an isolated fashion, and if you think that the S-400 system would be immune to any political military repercussions about other weapon systems.
It's far away from being ideal, and the reason for that also is the diplomatic bickering which has been happening over the past few weeks. With disagreements like these, Matthew, threatening another NATO ally, do you think US is somewhere risking the whole alliance?
Well, I think President Trump is risking the whole alliance for a number of reasons, in the way he's talked about it, saying it's obsolete and berating NATO allies, and not reaffirming the importance of Article 5, collective defense. It is weakening NATO. In this case, you can argue it both ways. So Turkey is a critical member of NATO. It's got the second largest military in NATO. The United States and Turkey really need each other militarily. That said, based on my contacts in Washington and at NATO headquarters, these U.S. and European allies feel that the purchase of the S-400s and its deployment actually does weaken NATO's own defense capabilities. So there's a dialogue that needs to continue here. I frankly am always against imposing sanctions on any NATO ally. I think that is the wrong path to go down. It was wrong last August, and it's wrong now.
Important part is the dialogue and the way forward. We'll talk about that, but let's very quickly have a look at some of the points to put the whole S-400 deal into context. Turkey has already deployed a Patriot system during the early years of the Syrian war, but the missiles were withdrawn by NATO in 2015. Since then, Ankara has been trying to buy the American system for itself. But a deal was never reached. Instead, in September 2017, Turkey made a deal with Russia for its S-400 system. But so far, Turkey has refused to cancel its deal with Russia. It's expected to start taking delivery this year. But the US claims that the S-400 poses a direct threat to the very aircraft that Turkey is supposed to receive, whose delivery remains uncertain. America's top general in Europe was pretty stern on the punishment he thought Turkey should receive if it went through with the deal. Let's have a listen.
My best military advice would be that we don't then follow through with the F-35, flying it, or working with an ally that's working with Russian systems, particularly air defense systems, with one of our, what I would say is probably one of our most advanced technological capabilities.
Certainly expression of concerns there, John. What are the assurances Turkey has given or been providing to assuage US concerns?
Well, first of all, at the geopolitical level, Turkey made it very clear that it is not an axis shift. Turkey is not moving away from NATO. Turkey is a very critical key member of the NATO alliance. But obviously, I think Turkey's Track 1.5 and Track 2 diplomatic channels with its traditional transatlantic allies are not perfectly working, because Turkey's diplomatic rhetoric is not resonating with its allies as Ankara wants. There is definitely a problem here, and it is not only the Turkish Foreign Office that should talk. It is about the Turkish think tank community. It is about the Turkish wider strategic community to promote that it is not a geopolitical axis shift. And secondly, Turkey is giving the assurance that it will be, the S-400 system will be operated as a standalone strategic SAM system. Well, to some extent, this is a credible assurance. But we have a big problem here, which is the level of Turkish involvement in the S-400 during its operations in Turkey, because the Russians made it very clear also that they will not hand over their source codes, any kind of algorithms, as well as the primary maintenance to the Turkish military. So while the transatlantic allies should be also, as the nature of an alliance, should be very trustful to Turkey, nobody could expect such a trust to the Russian Federation.
Talking about the diplomatic resonance or lack of it on both sides, there are several other issues. For example, the Gülen, Fethullah Gülen terrorist organization, the YPG terror group, which have actually harmed the bilateral relations, and now the issue of S-400. What is the way forward diplomatically?
Well, what has to happen, though I don't know how you get there, is that a basic strategic realignment has to occur, which means both Ankara and Washington need to see these problems you talked about in the same way. Right now, that's not happening. As obvious as it is here in Turkey that the Gülen organization organized the coup attempt in 2016, and that it's outrageous that the leader of the organization has permanent residency status in the States, or that the United States worked with the YPG, Washington has a much different understanding. Washington still generally wonders whether or not Gülen's organization really is behind the coup. Some people even question whether it was a real coup, which I think is insane. And then there are many in Washington, both in the US military and broader think tank community, who believe the US had no opportunity to defeat ISIS on the ground in Raqqa
Without
without
Turkey's support.
Well, without the YPG, without Turkey's support, but then they believe they asked for support, didn't get what they needed, so they turned to the YPG. Whereas Turkey says, we were willing to offer you, but you didn't take our support as we offered it.
Definitely not the way, but there's a lot to talk about. John Kasapoglu, Matthew Bryza, thank you so much for being on Straight Talk.